The ominous signal. The night was calm on Earth. Stars shimmered in the sky, unaware of the chaos about to unfold. Deep in a hidden research facility beneath the deserts of Nevada, a team of scientists worked late. Their job was routine: monitor space signals, decode messages, and report anything unusual. But that night, something different happened. Dr. Alan Carter, the lead scientist, sat in front of a glowing screen, sipping his cold coffee. His assistant, Sarah Mitchell, yawned beside him. "Another boring night," she muttered. Then the screen flickered. A strange pattern of signals appeared, long, repeating pulses mixed with rapid bursts. It wasn't natural. It wasn't random noise. It was a message. Alan straightened. His heart pounded as he tapped the keyboard, isolating the signal. "Sarah, are you seeing this?" he asked, his voice tense. Sarah leaned in. Her tired eyes widened. That's artificial." Alan nodded, his fingers moving fast. He ran the signal through multiple decoding programs. Each attempt failed, but one thing was clear: the message wasn't human. Across the room, an old radar technician, Paul Hendricks, noticed their expressions. "Something wrong?" he asked, walking over. Alan turned to him. "We just picked up a signal, and it's not from Earth." Paul's face went pale. He had worked in the military for 30 years. He had seen strange things. But this was different. "Where's it coming from?" he asked. Sarah checked the coordinates. "Deep space, but it's moving." Alan stared at the screen. Moving toward Earth. A heavy silence filled the room. Alan knew they had to act fast. He called General Marcus Reynolds at the Pentagon. Within minutes, a secure video call connected them. "Dr. Carter, explain," the general said, his face stern. Alan took a deep breath. "Sir, we've received a transmission. It's artificial. It's intelligent. And it's headed for Earth." Reynolds frowned. "Can you decode it?" Alan hesitated. "Not yet, but the pattern suggests urgency. It's like a warning." The general's jaw tightened. "A warning? From who?" Alan exchanged a look with Sarah. They had no answer. Reynolds didn't wait. "I want every intelligence agency working on this. If something is coming for us, we need to be ready." Hours passed. The team worked frantically. Satellites locked onto the signal source. It was a massive object, approaching fast. Too fast. Sarah gasped. "It's a ship. A colossal spaceship, the size of a city, was speeding toward Earth." Alan's throat went dry. "We're not alone." Then suddenly, the signal changed. The message became clear. One word repeated over and over: "Submit." Earth's first contact had begun. But it was not a greeting. It was a threat. The message echoed through every screen in the secret facility. The word "submit" flashed in eerie repetition, as if the sender wanted no room for misunderstanding. Dr. Alan Carter's hands trembled on the keyboard. His mind raced. This was not just a simple first contact. This was an ultimatum. Sarah Mitchell swallowed hard. "They're not asking to talk. They're demanding surrender." Paul Hendricks rubbed his temples. "Whoever they are, they think they own this galaxy. But why Earth? And why now?" Alan's thoughts were interrupted by the sharp beep of an incoming call. General Marcus Reynolds appeared on the screen again, his expression grim. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. "Our deep space telescopes just confirmed. That ship, it's not alone." A cold chill ran through Alan's spine. "How many?" Reynolds exhaled. "A fleet." The air in the lab grew heavier. The team stared at the satellite images. Shadows moved across the stars. Dozens, maybe hundreds of warships, each large enough to level a city. They weren't just heading toward Earth. They were preparing for something much worse. A conquest. Sarah suddenly had a thought. "We can't be the first," she said. Alan turned to her. "What do you mean?" She grabbed her tablet and started searching. An empire this advanced. They must have done this before. If they're demanding surrender, then somewhere in history, someone else must have heard this same message. She was right, and the answer was hidden in the past. A few minutes later, her face turned pale. "Found something," she whispered. She displayed an old classified document from Deep Space Research Archives. It was a record of a lost alien civilization, discovered decades ago. A civilization that had left behind ruins, but no survivors. Their last known transmission was eerily similar to what Earth had just received. Alan read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "They came from the dark. They gave us one choice: submit or be erased." Silence. The same message, the same morning. Paul clenched his fists. "We need to warn the world. Now." General Reynolds wasn't taking any chances. "We're activating planetary defense protocols. All military forces are on high alert." Alan knew it wasn't enough. Humanity had never fought anything beyond itself. This enemy was coming with weapons beyond imagination. Sarah's voice shook. "What if surrender isn't an option?" Alan met her gaze. "Then we fight." But deep down, he wondered, would fighting even matter? The countdown had begun. The fleet was getting closer, and Earth had no idea what was coming. The message echoed through every screen in the secret facility. The word submit flashed in eerie repetition, as if the sender wanted no room for misunderstanding. Dr. Alan Carter's hands trembled on the keyboard. His mind raced. This was not just a simple first contact. This was an ultimatum. Sarah Mitchell swallowed hard. "They're not asking to talk. They're demanding surrender." Paul Hendricks rubbed his temples. "Whoever they are, they think they own this galaxy. But why Earth? And why now?" Alan's thoughts were interrupted by the sharp beep of an incoming call. General Marcus Reynolds appeared on the screen again, his expression grim. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. "Our deep space telescopes just confirmed. That ship, it's not alone." A cold chill ran through Alan's spine. "How many?" Reynolds exhaled. "A fleet." The air in the lab grew heavier. The team stared at the satellite images. Shadows moved across the stars. Dozens, maybe hundreds of warships, each large enough to level a city. They weren't just heading toward Earth. They were preparing for something much worse. A conquest. Sarah suddenly had a thought. "We can't be the first," she said. Alan turned to her. "What do you mean?" She grabbed her tablet and started searching. An empire this advanced. They must have done this before. If they're demanding surrender, then somewhere in history, someone else must have heard this same message. She was right, and the answer was hidden in the past. A few minutes later, her face turned pale. "Found something," she whispered. She displayed an old classified document from Deep Space Research Archives. It was a record of a lost alien civilization, discovered decades ago. A civilization that had left behind ruins, but no survivors. Their last known transmission was eerily similar to what Earth had just received. Alan read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "They came from the dark. They gave us one choice: submit or be erased." Silence. The same message, the same morning. Paul clenched his fists. "We need to warn the world. Now." General Reynolds wasn't taking any chances. "We're activating planetary defense protocols. All military forces are on high alert." Alan knew it wasn't enough. Humanity had never fought anything beyond itself. This enemy was coming with weapons beyond imagination. Sarah's voice shook. "What if surrender isn't an option?" Alan met her gaze. "Then we fight." But deep down, he wondered, would fighting even matter? The countdown had begun. The fleet was getting closer, and Earth had no idea what was coming. The world was on edge. Governments scrambled to respond, but no one knew what to do. The message was clear: submit, but surrendering meant the end of Earth's freedom. And resisting, that could mean extinction. In the secret command center beneath the Pentagon, General Marcus Reynolds stood with arms crossed, staring at the massive screen displaying real-time satellite footage. The alien fleet was getting closer. No response had been sent yet, but the silence couldn't last forever. Dr. Alan Carter and Sarah Mitchell sat at a long conference table, waiting for the final word from Earth's leaders. The tension in the room was suffocating. Then, a new voice came through the encrypted communications channel. It was a deep, unfamiliar tone, translated through Earth's AI systems. Earth, do not resist. The Empire has spoken. Your survival depends on obedience. A cold, hollow silence followed. Paul Hendricks slammed his fist on the table. Damn it. We need answers. Who are these bastards? Alan took a deep breath. We might not find answers here, but maybe someone else already knows. Sarah's eyes lit up. The Galactic Council. Humanity had never directly communicated with the Galactic Council. The Council was a coalition of advanced alien civilizations that governed the known galaxy, setting laws, mediating disputes, and maintaining balance. Earth was still considered a young, undeveloped world, ignored, overlooked. Until now. Alan rushed to the secure communications terminal. With trembling fingers, he accessed an ancient protocol, one meant only for extreme emergencies. The last time it had been used was decades ago, when humanity first discovered they were not alone. He sent the transmission. This is Earth. We have received a message from an unidentified empire demanding submission. We seek guidance. We request aid. They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes, then an hour. No response. Sarah clenched her fists. Why aren't they answering? Paul shook his head. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they already know what's coming. Then, finally, the terminal beeped. A single-line text message appeared. Do not resist. Accept your place. The Empire's will is absolute. A chill ran through the room. Alan whispered, they're not going to help us. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. The Galactic Council wasn't ignoring Earth. They had already surrendered. Earth wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last. General Reynolds's voice was steady but cold. If no one's coming to save us, then we'll save ourselves. He turned to the team. We need weapons. We need strategy. And most of all, we need to survive. Alan looked back at the screen. The alien fleet was closer now. The countdown to invasion had begun. Humanity was alone. The alien fleet was now within the solar system. Massive warships, their dark metallic hulls reflecting the light of the distant sun, moved in perfect formation. Earth's defense forces scrambled, but the truth was undeniable. Humanity was outmatched in every way. No help was coming. The Galactic Council had already bent the knee, and Earth was expected to do the same. Dr. Alan Carter stood in the underground command center, his gaze locked on the massive screens displaying the incoming fleet. The weight of reality pressed against him. Sarah Mitchell, sitting beside him, clenched her hands into fists. So that's it. We just accept their rule. Her voice was filled with anger, but beneath it, fear was creeping in. General Reynolds stepped forward, his expression unreadable. We don't have a choice, he said. Not yet. Paul Hendricks, usually the most level-headed in the room, slammed his fist against the table. The hell we don't. If we surrender now, we're nothing but slaves. Or worse. Alan exhaled slowly. The pieces were coming together, but the full picture was terrifying. The Galactic Council's silence, the cryptic warning from the lost civilization, the overwhelming presence of the Empire's fleet. It all led to one conclusion. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a ritual, a process repeated over and over, planet after planet. Earth had been left alone for so long because it had been ignored. But now, something had changed. Humanity had done something to attract the Empire's attention. The question was, what? A deep, resonating hum filled the command center as another transmission arrived. The alien voice, calm yet absolute, echoed through the speakers. Earth, your time has come. Surrender your leaders, your military, your planet. The Empire does not wait. A timer appeared on the screen. 1 hour. Sarah's breath hitched. They're giving us a deadline. General Reynolds turned to his officers. Put all forces on high alert. Every defense system, every contingency plan. If they fire first, we hit back with everything we've got. Paul let out a bitter laugh. And what? Delay the inevitable. Alan's mind raced. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew science. The Empire wasn't just flexing its strength. It was following a pattern, a method. And that meant patterns could be broken. He turned to the general. We need time. Reynolds narrowed his eyes. For what? Alan hesitated, then spoke. To find their weakness. Silence filled the room. The countdown ticked away, second by second. The fate of humanity rested on a desperate gamble. And time was running out. The countdown on the screen ticked down with ruthless precision. 55 minutes remained. The weight of impending doom pressed against everyone in the command center. Humanity stood on the edge of extinction, facing an enemy with technology far beyond their own. Dr. Alan Carter stared at the alien transmission. Surrender was not an option. Resistance seemed impossible, but there had to be a way. Every empire had a weakness, no matter how powerful it appeared. Sarah paced back and forth. If we try to fight them head-on, we lose. If we surrender, we lose. So what the hell are we supposed to do? Paul Hendricks leaned against the console, shaking his head. They want submission, not negotiation. That means they aren't here to talk. They're here to take. General Reynolds remained stone-faced. Then we make it cost them. Alan wasn't listening. His fingers flew over his keyboard as he accessed old classified files, skimming through historical records, deep space scans, and intercepted alien transmissions. There had to be something. Some clue. Then he found it. A file buried deep within old research archives, a forgotten report from an unmanned probe that had vanished near the Empire's borders decades ago. The last transmission it sent back was corrupted, fragmented, but one part of the message stood out. Empire vessel compromised. Energy disruption detected. Systems failing. Initiating emergency transmission. The rest was lost. But it was enough. Alan's mind raced. If a simple probe could interfere with one of their ships, then perhaps. He turned to Sarah and Paul. They're not invincible. Sarah narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? Alan's voice was urgent. Decades ago, one of our deep space probes sent back a signal. Right before it was destroyed, it detected a weakness, some kind of energy disruption inside one of their ships. General Reynolds crossed his arms. Are you saying we can actually damage them? Alan hesitated. I'm saying something interfered with their systems before. If we can figure out how, we might have a chance. Paul scoffed. You're basing this on a half-corrupted transmission. It's better than nothing. Sarah's expression hardened. Then we find out what happened to that probe. Alan nodded. And fast, because in 50 minutes, they expect our surrender. The room fell into focused silence. The first real sliver of hope had appeared, but it was fragile. If they were wrong, Earth would burn. The clock kept ticking. The countdown continued. 45 minutes remained. Inside the underground command center, tension thickened like a storm ready to break. The world's most powerful leaders had gathered via secure communications, their voices overlapping in desperate arguments. Some urged surrender, convinced resistance was suicide. Others demanded war, believing death was better than submission. General Reynolds slammed his fist on the table. Enough. We waste time arguing while an armada looms over our heads. We need a plan. Dr. Alan Carter barely heard them. His mind was deep in calculations, analyzing the last transmission from the lost probe. Somewhere in that corrupted data was an answer, a clue to the Empire's weakness, but they were running out of time. Sarah sat beside him, scanning through classified files. This empire has conquered countless civilizations, right? She glanced at Alan. How do they do it? Alan exhaled, tapping his fingers on the keyboard. They don't just invade. They demand surrender first. Every time. Paul leaned forward. And if someone refuses? Alan hesitated before responding. They disappear. The room fell silent. Sarah's jaw tightened. You mean? Alan nodded. No survivors. No ruins. Just erased. Paul let out a slow breath. Then why haven't they fired yet? That question lingered. The alien fleet could have destroyed Earth the moment it arrived. Why wait? Why give a deadline? Alan's eyes widened as a terrifying thought struck him. They want something. General Reynolds frowned. What? Alan looked at the screen showing the alien fleet. If they just wanted to wipe us out, they wouldn't waste time. They need us alive, at least for now. Sarah's fingers flew over her tablet. Maybe it's resources. Maybe they need our planet. Alan shook his head. No, they've conquered plenty of worlds before. If they wanted our planet, they'd glass it and take it. He paused, then muttered, they need something else. Something only we have. Reynolds folded his arms. Then we figure out what it is before the clock runs out. Helen glanced back at the corrupted probe data. And maybe that probe already found the answer. Every second mattered now. Scientists and engineers rushed to decode the probe's last transmission. The data was fragmented, barely holding together after decades of corruption. Alan oversaw the process, his heart pounding. If they didn't find something soon, all of this would be pointless. Paul paced behind him. You really think this tiny scrap of data is going to save us? Alan didn't look away from the screen. It's the only lead we have. More data appeared. More fragments. Then, finally, something useful. Sarah pointed at the screen. There. The probe recorded an unknown energy pattern before it was destroyed. Whatever it detected, it messed with the Empire's systems. Ellen studied the readings. The energy signature was unlike anything recorded before. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't interference. It was. His eyes widened. It's biological. Paul raised an eyebrow. Come again. Ellen turned to the others, his voice steady but urgent. The probe didn't just detect energy. It detected something living. Silence filled the room. Reynolds stepped forward. You're saying this empire, this unstoppable force, has a weakness to something alive. Ellen swallowed hard. Yes, and whatever it is, it's connected to us. Sarah's hands trembled. You think they're afraid of humans? Ellen nodded. Not just afraid, terrified. The clock showed 20 minutes left. The realization changed everything. The Empire had erased civilizations, wiped planets clean, but always after demanding surrender first. Why? Because they couldn't afford resistance. Not because of weapons, not because of technology. Because of something inside the people themselves. Alan's mind raced. Human DNA, brain patterns, something unique about their biology. If they could figure it out, they wouldn't just have a way to resist. They might have a way to win. But the Empire would never let that happen. General Reynolds' voice was firm. We don't wait for them to act. We make the first move. Alan looked at the countdown. Time was running out. And now, humanity's survival depended on one final gamble. The final minutes ticked away. The weight of impending doom hung over the command center like a noose tightening around humanity's throat. The Empire's fleet remained motionless in orbit, an overwhelming force of destruction held back by their own twisted sense of procedure. They were waiting for Earth to bow. Alan Carter wasn't going to let that happen. The probe's corrupted data had revealed something terrifying. The Empire didn't just fear human resistance. They feared humans themselves. Something about human biology, something unique, was a threat to them. But what? And why? Sarah stared at the screen, her voice a whisper. They'd wiped out civilizations before. If they saw us as just another conquest, we'd already be gone. Paul's eyes darted between the screens. Then what makes us different? Alan's fingers flew over the keyboard, running rapid analyses of genetic markers, neurological patterns, anything that could explain why the Empire was hesitant. And then, he found it. His voice came out in a breathless murmur. It's adaptability. General Reynolds leaned in. Explain. Alan's heart pounded. Every species the Empire has conquered was stagnant. They evolved to a point and stopped changing. But humans, we adapt, we grow, we break limits, and that terrifies them. Sarah's mind raced. So that means. Alan's voice sharpened. We aren't just a threat. We're a virus to them. If they don't control us now, they never will. Paul clenched his fists. Then we give them a reason to be afraid. The timer on the screen hit 5 minutes. The Empire's voice boomed through the command center once more. Your time is up. Submit or be erased. Ellen stood. Send them a message. Sarah's hands flew over the controls, broadcasting their response across all channels. Alan's voice rang out, steady and unyielding. To the Empire, you fear us, and you should. Silence. Then, for the first time, the Empire hesitated. Their ships adjusted positions, a flicker of uncertainty rippling through their ranks. Paul grinned. Looks like they weren't expecting that. General Reynolds turned to his officers. Prepare all forces. If they attack, we make sure they regret it. Ellen wasn't finished. We're not just resisting. We're going to show them why humans survive. The countdown reached 0. The war for Earth had begun.